Chapter 12. Jane's recovery was now complete, and she was able to downstairs the whole day. The next great object was her return home. Mrs. Bennet, who had calculated on her daughters remaining at Netherfield till the following Tuesday, which would exactly finish Jane's week, could not bring herself to receive them with pleasure before. Her answer, therefore, was not propitious, at least not to Elizabeth's wishes, for she was impatient to get home. Mrs. Bennet sent them word that they could not possibly have the carriage before Tuesday, and in her postscript it was added that if Mr. Bingley and his sister pressed them to stay longer, she could spare them very well. Against staying longer, however, Elizabeth was positively resolved, nor did she much expect it would be asked, and fearful, on the contrary, as being considered as intruding themselves needlessly long, she urged Jane to borrow Mr. Bingley's carriage immediately, and at length it was settled that they should go home on Saturday. The communication excited many professions of concern, and enough was said of wishing them to stay at least till the following day to work on Jane, and till the morrow their going was deferred. Mr. Bingley heard with real sorrow that they were to go so soon, and repeatedly tried to persuade Miss Bennet that it would not be safe for her, that she was not enough recovered. But Jane was firm where she felt herself to be right. To Mr. Darcy it was welcome intelligence. Elizabeth had been at Netherfield long enough. She attracted him more than he liked, and Miss Bingley was uncivil to her, and more teasing than usual to himself. He wisely resolved to be particularly careful that no sign of admiration should now escape him, nothing that could elevate her with the hope of influencing his felicity. Sensible that if such an idea had been suggested, his behavior during the last day must have material weight in confirming or crushing it. Steady to his purpose, he scarcely spoke 10 words to her through the whole of Saturday, and though they were at one time left by themselves for half an hour, he adhered most conscientiously to his book and would not even look at her. On Sunday after church they were to go, and Jane was concerned at the trouble which she had given Mr. Bingley, whose carriage was to attend them to Longbourn. Elizabeth had honestly told her sister that she did not like Miss Bingley's increased civility, which she attributed to her brother's being absent and to her hope of getting them out of the house. But Jane would not hear of such a thing. She was sure of Miss Bingley's regard, and wished to see her happy. Miss Bingley's civility to Elizabeth increased at last very rapidly, as well as her affection for Jane, and when they parted, after assuring the latter of the pleasure it would always give her to see her either at Longbourn or Netherfield, and embracing her most tenderly, she even shook hands with the former. Mr. Darcy said nothing to Elizabeth that he could not help saying, and to Jane only bowed his adieu without looking at her. Mr. Bingley was the only one of the party who seemed to feel any regret at their departure. He pressed them repeatedly to come again, was fearful they would be too cold, and longed to know what acquaintance he might have the pleasure of making at Longbourn. They arrived in safety at home, where they were received with great joy by their mother. Mrs. Bennet wondered at their coming, and thought them very wrong to give so much trouble, and was sure Jane would have caught cold again. But their father, though very laconic in his expressions of pleasure, was really glad to see them. He had felt their importance in the family circle. They found Mary, as usual, deep in the study of thorough bass and human nature, and had some new extracts to admire and some new observations of threadbare morality to listen to. Catherine and Lydia had information for them of a different sort. Much had been done and much had been said in the regiment since the preceding Wednesday. Several of the officers had dined lately with their uncle. A private had been flogged, and it had actually been hinted that Colonel Forster was going to be married.
If you enjoyed Chapter 12, subscribe now for Chapter 13 and the rest of this amazing story. You can also find the full playlist here to improve your English with ease. Don't miss out.